What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're actually going to be covering two stories for you today, as we have a lot of weather that's going to be going on. First, we're going to start with the tropics. Here's the situation we have right now. What you're looking at in the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean Sea is Invest 99L. Somehow, the NHC decided to tag this as an invest, and here's the proof right here on Tropical Tidbits. Invest 99L, its current location is 14 degrees north, 73.1 degrees west. Its maximum sustained winds are at 20 knots or 23 miles per hour, and its minimum central pressure is 1,008 millibars. So that's what we have going on, at least with what we have so far. This was just designated as of around 7 o'clock Eastern time. So if we go ahead and show you the outlook we have right here, this is what we have for you for 99L. A shower and thunderstorm activity has increased somewhat in association with a small area of low pressure located in the central Caribbean Sea. However, environmental dry air is still likely to prevent significant development of the system as it begins to drift slowly westward later this week. Formation chance in the next 48 hours is 10%. Same in the next 7 days, 10%. So my question for you, NHC, is if dry air is still likely to prevent significant development of the system, why are you designating this an invest? I mean, seriously, I can kind of understand where they're coming from, especially since this is a low-sheared and very warm-watered environment. But if there's going to be so much dry air where it's going to prevent a lot of significant development, why are you designating this an invest? However, there is one other area that does need to be taken a look at, and it's this area right here. We now have a 30% chance of formation in the next 7 days, and this literally came out of nowhere. If we go ahead and show you what we had earlier today, we had this, and then last night when we reported on this, we didn't have anything, and then overnight this just came out of absolutely nowhere, and now we have this situation right here. A non-tropical area of low pressure is forecasted to develop along a front over the central portion of the Atlantic Basin during the next couple of days. Thereafter, environmental conditions appear somewhat conducive for the system to gradually acquire some subtropical or tropical characteristics during the latter part of this week, while it generally moves eastward across the central subtropical Atlantic. Formation chance in the next 48 hours is near 0%. Formation chance in the next 7 days is now at 30%. So the chances have really started to increase by quite a bit over the last 12 hours in that one in the subtropical Atlantic over there. So these are both areas of interest that we need to pay attention to, at least for the next few days. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start getting to some computer models, because we all saw we all saw what the NHC put out. I want to take a look at the models to see what they're kind of looking at and what potential development they're looking at. And with that, we're going to have to go Atlantic wide with this, because not only do we have this thing in the Caribbean, but we have this thing going on in the subtropical Atlantic. So that's what we have going on. We're going to go ahead and start showing you the models. The European, for at least 99L, isn't really showing particular organization or development at this current point in time, which is something I would, to be honest, expect, primarily due to all the dry air and dry air that's going on, because all the other conditions are rather favorable, but it's just the dry air situation that's really limiting this development. However, in the subtropics, we are starting to see a low pressure system break off from this one right here and then move through this part of the Atlantic and start showing signs of tropical characteristics and then organization and development as time continues to go on. And it gets down to a 993 millibar system before it starts to move to the north and become more of a frontal system and then weaken as time continues to go on. Well, not exactly weaken, but you get the idea of what we're thinking about. And if we go ahead and show you some of the conditions for both of these, here's what we have. Here are the conditions that we have for a lot of the areas around the Atlantic as well as the Caribbean. 28 plus degrees Celsius all across the board for everything, or about 82 degrees plus Fahrenheit for those of you who live in the United States. And for a lot of the Caribbean areas, we're looking at 30 plus degrees Celsius or 86 plus degree Fahrenheit for those of you who live in the U.S. and Puerto Rico. So for 99L, the water is absolutely there. And for this area of interest in the subtropical Atlantic, the water is absolutely there. If we go ahead and show you the wind shear, we have two different stories right now. For the Caribbean 99L, the wind shear is definitely there for development. As you can see right there, we're looking at 15 to 20, not even 20 knots of wind shear, like 10 to 15 knots of wind shear max, all the way to Central America, where it is expected to be bringing some impacts to Nicaragua and Honduras, potentially a lot of flash flooding, potentially mudslides, all of the above right there. And then you have this area of interest where I don't see how the NHC is designating this an interest, primarily because of what we're seeing right now, with all the wind shear being like 30, 40, up to 50 knots in some areas, as a matter of fact. So definitely something to pay attention to as time continues to go on. If we go ahead and show you the shear forecast, we can probably get a better understanding of why the NHC is tagging this as an AOI. So at this point right now, if we go ahead and show you at least the subtropical area, the wind shear is forecasted to weaken in the next 48 hours as the low pressure system does start to break off. And then it's in a pocket of low wind shear where it's going to start to potentially organize and develop. However, it has roughly like 2 to 3 days to do so before the shear starts to overtake it. And then it becomes a frontal system as we continue to look at. But as we go ahead and show you the Caribbean system where 99L is, the wind shear for the next like 48 hours remains relatively quiet across much of the Caribbean before it starts to increase in the northern half of it. And then you start to see a complete collapse of the low wind shear starting about 5 days out. You might get a one last hurrah from the low wind shear environment. However, by the start of December, it does look like the whole wind shear pocket is going to collapse, and it's going to be a shut off for the season. So that's what we have for the shear forecast. Now we're going to go ahead and show you the moisture component to all this going on. And the moisture component, if we go ahead and take a look at that, the moisture across much of the Caribbean, there's not really that much there. Because there's a lot of dry air. But if we show you the subtropical stuff, there is quite a bit of moisture for this system to develop on if this dry air doesn't intrude in it early on. So that's definitely something to pay attention to as time continues to go on. But as for the Caribbean, yeah, there's a lot of dry air surrounding this. In fact, if we go ahead and show you the water vapor imagery, yeah, there's quite a bit of dry air all across this system right there. I'm actually surprised it's lasting as long as it is, and it's overcoming all the adversity it is of being in a massively dry-aired environment. I mean, there is a couple of pockets of moisture that's feeding off of, but it's completely black from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to where the outflow is and where all the storms are. Like, the outflow is getting killed out there by all the dry air. So that's the situation that we have going on with the dry air, and it's not expected to change anytime soon. They might have a pocket of moisture going for the next 3 to 4 days, but then the dry air is going to completely overtake it, and that's going to pretty much kill off any chance of tropical development for the rest of the year. So that's the situation we have going on in the tropics. Now we're going to go ahead and shift gears because we have a severe weather outbreak that is expected to start today, this afternoon. We are getting some down reports in the surface of a lot of stuff happening very quickly. Here's the situation for those of you who are in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. For those of you who are tuning in for the severe weather outbreak, here's the situation. We have an enhanced risk of severe weather that is driven by a 10% hatched tornado risk across this whole enhanced risk. This is by far the biggest risk area right here. The biggest risk today is tornadoes, for those of you who are tuning in from the deep south. Then you have wind risk at 30% in Louisiana and Mississippi, which it takes over the eastern half of the enhanced risk area at this current point in time, and the hail is only at 15%. It's the least amount of risk at this current point in time. So based off the stuff alone from the NHC, it looks like the tornado risk is going to be all around, but the wind risk is going to be mainly in the eastern half, primarily due to a squall line that's expected to develop in the eastern part of this Louisiana right there. So that's what we have going on with the NHC. If we go ahead and read the summary real quickly, tornadoes, some strong, damaging thunderstorm winds and isolated large hail are expected from this afternoon across East Texas and parts of Louisiana through tonight across the Delta region into portions of Mississippi and Alabama. We're not going to read the whole synopsis or anything like that because primarily we have other data that we can take a look at. But one thing I want to point out real quickly is There may have been a brief tornado that already as of 11:43 a.m. as I'm recording this, touched down near Houston, Texas. This was from Sean Paul Padilla right here. Here's what he says on Twitter. Looks like a brief tornado may have just occurred near Liberty, Texas, northeast of Houston. A consistent lowering in the correlation coefficient for several scans and an associated velocity enhancement. And here's some of the screenshots he put here from Radar Omega right here. This is the infamous hook shape that all tornadoes like to go on. That's the velocity stuff. We have the CC drop right here, decent correlation coefficient with that for sure. We'll have to see if the NWS ends up kind of verifying this. And then you have this last one. I'm not 100% sure what that exactly is, but I'll hit up my severe weather team and we'll kind of look into that. Meanwhile, if we go ahead and show you conditions on the ground, a lot of the satellite, a lot of areas in Texas, Louisiana, and especially in southeastern Louisiana, southwestern Mississippi, they're clearing up and becoming more partly cloudy. And that's a particular concern for me because this wasn't expected to occur this early, and there was talk of a moderate risk getting issued. I honestly think they might jump the gun here, but it's a big might if this whole situation with the clouds being partly cloudy and the sun just really bringing in a lot of energy and the capes continues to keep going up, that we'll have to pay attention to it. If we go ahead and show you what we have from the HRRR model, if we go ahead and show you the cape that's going on with this, the convective available potential energy, it's cracking 2,000 in a lot of these areas right here, and this is by 4 p.m. when the biggest part of the severe weather is supposed to start. By around 10 o'clock tonight, it's expected to become a massive squall line as it moves through Louisiana and Mississippi, as well as Alabama, in all those areas right there. So definitely something to pay attention to, but real-time conditions are showing we have a lot of clearing going on, we have a lot of partly cloudiness going on, and all around, this looks like a pretty nasty severe weather outbreak to really start the Thanksgiving break. So if you're in the Deep South, I would advise not traveling to see your relatives today, just primarily due to the threat of severe weather. I don't want your cars getting hit by hail or anything like that. And I just want you to stay home where you have your most interior room, where you have a designated shelter. Wait till tomorrow to travel if able, and we'll keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to close the video out right here. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel is to get more people engaged with weather. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.